Ladies and gentlemen, I am so honored that the community has turned out in such a great way for this very moment of the museum here with Jamie Herrera and Craig Robinson. At this time, I ask you to rise as we present the colors.
Shoulder.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Again, I want to thank you all for coming out today. Today is Martin Luther King Day, a day that we have taken as Americans to recognize a great American and a leader of the civil rights movement. His memory and his legacy permanently etched upon the tablets of American history. My name is Chip Duncan. I'm the executive director here at the Veterans Memorial Museum. Most of you probably already know that. I want to remind you that the Veterans Memorial Museum has a mission, and that mission is to ensure that our veterans and their sacrifices are never forgotten. The men and the women who have served in peacetime and war will never forget their service or their duty or their sacrifices that they have made in the events that have shaped their lives, but also shaped the course of American history. The museum exists for the sole purpose that they will never be forgotten. On October 23rd of 1983, elements of the terrorist organization Islamic Jihad attacked the United States Marine Corps barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, with truck bombs. In an instant, 220 Marines, 18 sailors, and 3 soldiers lost their lives. More than 125 more were wounded in the attack. It was the greatest American loss for the American military since the Tet Offensive of 1968. It was also the greatest loss of the Marine Corps since the assault on Iwo Jima in 1945. Martin Luther King wrote, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in a moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at a time of challenge and controversy." On that day, on October 23rd, 1983, there was a young man who was 19 years old, freshly out of Navy boot camp. He was simply a passenger being taxied by the USS Iwo Jima, a helicopter carrier, right off the coast of Lebanon. They were the ones of the aircraft carriers that were taking on the casualties. Bosun's mate Craig Robinson volunteered to do what he could among the chaos. It was a grim day. There was grim work of putting bodies into body bags and holding the hands of the dying. The following day, they asked for volunteers, and he volunteered to go ashore. This was literally his second official day in the United States Navy. They shipped him over to the Marine Corps barracks among the rubble and the ruins for recovering bodies. For those of you who have served in the United States military, in peacetime or in war, there are things you have seen that you will never forget. I, as a civilian, have never seen such the horrors of war like some of you have. And I know you will never forget, and neither will Craig. 33 years have passed since that event. For 30 years, he had a battle to wage within himself over what he experienced. And for those of you who have seen combat, you know what that feels like. My hope for this day is twofold. For one, Craig gets the recognition that he deserves for his selfless act during this horrible event. And secondly, that you who are here will not allow the bombing of the Marine Corps barracks that happened in 1983 to escape your memory, but that you will remember it. It did happen, and it should not be forgotten. I want to recognize a special individual who took part of this celebration, who is not here today, unfortunately, Darlene Tewalt. She is a PTSD counselor for the VA, and she was instrumental in this day by working with the National Archives and the Department of the Navy of getting this award approved after 33 years. It is my pleasure now to introduce to you Bosun's Mate Craig Robinson and Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Buehler.
I'm going to say a little something and prolong. I don't want to say the agony. It's quite amazing to get to be here. You know, I get to take part in amazing events throughout. As U.S. Congressman, you can only imagine the different types of things I get to be a part of within our community. But nothing gives me greater awe and humbles me more than getting to be at an event like this with our veterans. Partially because, you know, I've never served, I've never gone to combat, I've never had to literally lay my life on the line for the things that I love and care about. But when I get to be in a room like this, and when we get to have a celebration and a recognition like this, I am reminded what a great honor it is to get to be here and in your presence in an event. And I don't think that we can ever as a nation say thank you enough or recognize enough. But when I read through the account of literally your first day, and then your second day, I understand, you know, your first day you were told there wasn't a position for you yet. You hadn't been assigned. And then all of a sudden now you are having to hold the hands of people who have died in service of our country. And you were the last face that they saw, and you got to be that comfort. And then the next day you volunteered for something else, anything else, and you were sent to the barracks to do recovery. You did that as a young man, as a 19-year-old. And for someone like me, I think about where I was at 19. You were literally willing to protect not just our homeland, but our freedom into posterity. And you did so in service to your fellow warrior. And I'm sure their families who may never know what you did will be eternally grateful, as are we. So it is with my humble honor that I get to be here today and be a tiny part of this to say thank you, that we're grateful. And even though I know that it cost you, I know that you have spent time overcoming that and what that means. We will never forget, and we are so grateful. So thanks for letting me be here today.
I just want to thank everybody for showing up, especially Congresswoman Jamie Herrera Buehler, and all of you and all my friends. I really appreciate it. A little overwhelmed at all this. I wasn't really. If I'd have known this was going to happen, I would have never told Chip. There's a lot of little pieces that had to come together for all this to happen. I just recently found out that I even got this, but I give all the credit to my awesome wife, because she's the one that had noticed that I have issues, and that I wasn't just a jerk like everybody else usually thought. I think she noticed that there was certain things that I did and how I acted, that there was something else that needed to be looked at. And so after she finally convinced me to go to the VA and get me a counselor and everything, and through all that process, my counselor wrote to the archives, and I got a letter and said, had a list of the awards that I had gotten, and there was an extra one on there. And I said, well, I don't know what this one is. She goes, well, you got that. And it was for Lebanon, which is the one I always kind of hoped I would get. But mainly because it acknowledges that I was actually there and not just floating offshore on a ship, you know. Everybody says, oh, but you were in the Navy, you know, that was easy. So, yeah, it was after the first couple days. So I'm very honored to have this. I don't really think I did anything really all that special. They make it sound like it did. My good friend Ross said, you know, it's hard to accept an award for doing your job, and I felt that I was just doing my job. The main thing is that, like Chip said, this brings attention to the 241 servicemen who lost their lives defending a foreign country, and that's the most important thing to me, because I used to get really upset every year around October 23rd because you haven't heard anything about it for probably 32 years. There's nothing. I used to look, there's nothing, and I used to just really get upset. So at least now, with all of your help, at least the people in this room, I think it's a start that we can all make sure that they will not be forgotten. So thank you.
Yeah, it was. I worked with his wife Valerie on setting all this up as much as we could so that he wouldn't find out. And she admitted to me it was the first time in their marriage that he had actually lied to him. When the cat came out of the bag, I got a really interesting text message of "you jerk." But thank you for doing it, because I didn't think anybody would do something this special, and it's just my honor, and I am. My life is dedicated now to you guys, you veterans. I want to just close with a few things. I cannot thank Congresswoman Jamie enough. A few years ago, actually in this room here, she came to me and she said, if you have a veteran and they need something, get in touch with me. I will make it happen. And, you know, we've just gone through a political process, and there's a lot of promises that get made during political promises. But the one thing I can tell everybody is that when Jamie says she's going to do something, it gets done. Her staff is an incredible staff to work with. She personally goes out and advocates on behalf of veterans. And I cannot say enough good about Jamie. I asked her actually last year if she was going to run for president, and she said she didn't want that gun pointed at her head. But we are very, very lucky here in this district to have her representing us, and especially our veterans. I want to bring to attention two other local veterans here who are quite remarkable in their own right. Leland Davidson, if you would stand, sir. He is a very young, 101 years old today, or not today, well, it's just his birthday. He's 101. And I would also like to recognize another Navy veteran, Richard Gruelle, who is a veteran of World War II. He was a Navy corpsman working with an Army engineer unit on Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. Not only that, if you look at his ribbon rack, it makes him lean to port a little bit there. He was also a veteran during the Korean War, but he did not serve in the Korean War, but he was a Korean War era veteran. And he also served in Vietnam as well. He's a 3-war veteran, and we're very lucky. There's a lot of other people here, but this is Navy Day. Sorry, guys. At this time, we will just go ahead and close out this ceremony. I want to thank you all for coming. We have some cake and coffee in the back if you would like. And again, I appreciate you all for coming. And please, let us never forget the Beirut bombing. Let it never escape our memory ever again. And it happened 33 years ago. There were men who gave their lives in that. And there were men like Craig who stood up and said, I will volunteer to do what I can to do the best in a bad situation. And that is literally the definition of our men and women who serve in our armed forces. Thank you for coming.